Hey guys, Tom Davidson back here with Pastime and Yard Work. We've got Nelson Gord on here with NCSA. I've known Nelson for a while back when he's with the Illinois Indians for travel ball stuff, but he's with NCSA where, Pastime's a part of the athletics family where we've got Pastime and Mid-America and Youth Nationals and Game Day USA all in that network of brands. But we partnered with NCSA to kind of help us on the exposure side for the high school piece. That exposure side is the most important factor for us. That's what we do these tournaments for. We want to play on those nice fields and things, but the exposure piece for these student athletes is the most important thing for us. During a time like this, Nelson and I have talked along with a lot of the college coaches we've had on here. The NCSA program may be the most valuable tool that we can all utilize right now to get these guys the exposure they need, especially the seniors right now. Nelson, can you kind of take us through maybe your background a little bit and then how you've got involved with NCSA, and then we'll jump into the NCSA process.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I've run a travel program for going on 13 years now. Grew it from a group of 11 and 12-year-old kids to now we have 14 teams at the high school level alone. And, what kind of my transition was, I started at the junior college level coaching, went into the high school realm. I was the head coach at a local private high school that Pastime actually utilized for a couple summers. And then really found that I was most passionate not about teaching a kid how to swing a bat or field a ground ball. Like I love the recruiting aspect of it, and not even like the high profile kids, because they're going to take care of themselves. It's not hard to, see a dude that's 91 to 93 from the left side and say, hey, he's going to have a shot. It was the kids that were more like me growing up. Like nobody in my family had ever went to college. It was a complete novelty. So you add sports into the mix, and we had no idea what we were doing. And there are so many families that are out there like that are either waiting for their coach to do something, assume that they're going to be in the right place at the right time, and all these doors are going to open up. And it's just not the way that it works. And, through the Indians program, I saw a number of kids that were getting opportunities that, I hadn't spoken with coach. I hadn't talked to anybody, and suddenly they have offers, or they're going on visits. And I'm like, how the heck is this happening? And it turned out that many of them were using NCSA, company I've seen, didn't really know too much about. So I took a drive down, met with the founder of the company, Chris Kraus, and he toured me around. We had lunch, and that was going on 7 years ago now. And I've been with NCSA ever since. And really, my focus is evangelizing those who might have a bad image or, the stigma around a recruiting service, and helping them understand that it's just a way to streamline all of their efforts, make it easier, and really open up doors that they didn't even know existed. And I think that's what hopefully, we'll uncover today and talk about today. And it pumps me up to help out those kids that, if it wasn't for some of the tools that we have and the coaches that they have, and meshing those two things together, that they really wouldn't have a shot.
Yeah. And you're not a salesman for this kind of thing. You're a former Division I baseball player. Like you understand what the process is like from the exposure side, just from being a player and a coach on these things. So I want people to understand that this isn't coming from somebody that's here for the wrong reason. You're doing this out of passion. You've been there before. You know what it's like, and now you've found something that that you're really passionate about. I think that's a good point to make for sure.
Yeah, it's really no different than like you see all the hitting Twitter wars, right?
Yeah.
You have this school of thought that is really data driven, and some of the terminology might not mesh with some of the older school guys or guys that even played in the big leagues. And there's this battle, and there really shouldn't be, because there's value in all of it. And same thing here. Like I would never devalue the relationship that any travel organization has or any high school coach has, because I am one. I have been one. And those are paramount compared to anything else that an athlete could use. But if you're able to use this to supplement it, or use this as at least initiate it, it's just going to be more powerful, right? It's like it's adding horsepower to an engine that is already working pretty well. So, that's the thing I love about it. And, let's face it, there just aren't enough hours in the day to manage this for everyone. So it's pretty impactful.
Yeah, so I'm going to let you take over the screen here in a little bit, but from our side, from the event side and doing the exposure piece that we want to do on some of these other segments, we've kind of covered, the analytics side and everything's numbers driven and, how can you spin the ball? What's your exit velo? Things like that. All those things are great. You see a lot of these kids putting videos up on social platforms. This is just a little different for me. It's a little more in depth. What's that NCSA process like if you're getting onto the website and starting fresh with this? Is there a information on, hey, this is what we cover, these are option A, B, C, D? What's the full process like on there?
Yeah, well, the great thing is that it's super dynamic. So from the moment you sign up and you register with your information, it guides you on what to do next. So whether you're coming in for the first time or you've been a member of the program for 3 or 4 years, you're never really lost in where to go. There are some features that we do offer that give you that one-on-one attention where you can work with somebody, but for someone that wants to take the bull by the horns and run with it, there's so much that they could do that is 100% free for them. And really that's kind of the great mystery for me, is why people, they ask questions when they've been given the tools. And if they would just spend a few minutes, I think they would be absolutely floored at some of the things that they can uncover and how much simpler the process can become.
Yeah, I think we get questions like that a lot from, being Pastime tournaments or Mid-American, that, everybody thinks our competitor, like why would we promote our competitors? On the exposure side, teams ask me all the time about, Prep Baseball Report or Perfect Game profiles, things like that. I'm like, the more of these sites that you can be on and do well, why wouldn't you take advantage of that? This is one that you don't have to pay $250 to go to an event, to get on the website, to get a profile. This is something that you can do right now.
Yep. And I think the big difference, and again, those are all great resources, and I would encourage any kid to take advantage of getting their name in those databases at a minimum. But really where the differentiator is that we're really providing an outline, a checklist, things that they can constantly be doing. Whereas those are all places to put information or places to aggregate data. This is helping them discover, do research, figure out what's next, see what college coaches are doing. So it's really athlete driven, family driven, process driven, as opposed to event or showcase driven.
Yeah.
And, they all have a place in this industry, but, you're going to need that assistance in some way, shape, or form. And I think that the platform does a pretty good job of it.
All right, cool. So can you walk us through, maybe take over the screen and walk us through the website and, what these guys can expect and how they get set up?
Yeah, for sure. So, and of course, now that page isn't there, let me go back.
And you said this is a free there's so much they can do on here that's free. Are there levels that they can go on there and, that do cost money that they can explore as well as a family?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can show you the differences between those. Really, when it boils down to it, that's going to be the hand holding and then unlocking some of the other features as far as communication tools and stuff like that.
Okay.
Let me know.
All right, there we go.
Okay, so this is a 2022 athlete right here. And when anybody logs in, they'll get to see exactly what it is that they need to still upload. Since he is a sophomore, he's not going to have his test scores up. Even juniors right now, many of them aren't going to because some of the tests have been canceled, but it tells you like right there what you're missing. He's obviously been in it for some amount of time, so he has 80% of his profile complete. I don't know if I I like that word so much because it is a work in progress and things that kids and families will need to go back to and continue to update. But the good thing is they have a checklist as soon as they log in here.
Okay.
I said before about, it being guided. It's also going to give you a path of things to do with what we call drills. And this is built within NCSA University. So you can actually see the different categories here. You can see what your next milestone is. For those that are familiar with the TAP test, a lot of MLB teams use it. A lot of teams from the NFL draft use it. It was started at Northwestern University, but it's an athlete personality test. That's a free thing for the kids to use and to log into. It's a great tool for our coaches to be able to see, what type of athlete they are, what type of leader they are. So that's the next thing that Ryan needs to do. In this profile, all these drills, they won't take longer than 2 to maybe 7 minutes. So this isn't something where we're expecting any athlete to sit down for 7 hours on a Sunday and, hey, like, do all of this right now, right? We know that just like in baseball, just like in training, a more consistent approach, doing a small amount every single day, that's going to add up to a greater sum. They're going to have more success. So we design the whole program around that. So you'll see after he finishes this one, you got 3 minutes, 5 minutes, all the way down, showing coaches your transcript. If there's 2 things that any athlete should take away, any coach should take away, the combination of putting up video and putting up your transcript are the golden ticket, right? That is the absolute golden ticket, because the video is obviously going to paint a picture of their skill set, and that transcript is going to allow the coach to take that to admissions, take it to financial aid, and say, can we get them in, and how much money can we give them, right? Without those things, they're going to have to do a lot of discovery on their own. They're going to have to do a lot of question asking to the coach or to the family. But if you can pull that together in one place, and you mentioned some of the other companies before, I don't think they have a place really to post your transcript or to do some of those other things, or take external video.
Right, like you said, this isn't a lot of those are data collection type of websites where it's just stagnant. This is when we went through this process to figure out, is this somebody that we should partner with that's going to take, our events to the next level as far as an exposure piece? It was the complete engagement of this website that, it caught me right away. And on here, when you're going through this process, I think a lot of families and especially players don't understand maybe what some of the requirements are from an eligibility standpoint for some universities, what the costs are for those universities. Like, having as much information in one place as you can get is huge. It makes it that much easier for these guys to go one place. They can be completely engaged as little or as often as they'd like, and really take that recruiting step, into their own hands.
Yep. And, you talked before about the difference between being a paid member of NCSA and what the free tools are.
Yeah.
Well, probably the most powerful thing is what you just referenced, is that college search. I had no idea when I was in high school. Like I said, we were pretty ignorant to the process, but, there are over 90 colleges that play baseball, colleges and universities in the state of Illinois. So say that I were to go back 25 years or whenever it was, and I was going through this process again, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to go too far from home, which I didn't. And I just wanted to run a search. Here's Illinois. Search for that. And, you'll see that there are 92 schools that pop up, and it's broken down in 10 per page right now. But all division levels, and that this screen right here gives you kind of a broad overview from what division they are, how competitive they are, right? Because all Division Ones aren't created equally. There are Division III teams that could beat up on some of the lower level Division Ones, especially throughout our region, right? There's a lot of really powerful Division III programs, and that's because that's the type of student athlete that they're after, are the ones that the Indianapolis area, the Chicagoland area, Minneapolis, like we're renowned for creating a well-rounded student athlete, and that's why you see a lot of those Division III schools be pretty darn good.
Right.
If you were to dig in deeper to any of these schools, like let's see what we got here. Like let's look at Concordia, for instance. Played in a couple Division III World Series. We've had a number of kids that have went on to play there. A number of our coaches are alumni from there. But if you were to look at any school's page, you know, you'd see a bunch of things. But I think the coolest feature, and I'm not even sure if you saw this last time you were in here, is we really created this timeline of all the different interactions that they could have with the school. Right? Because the two areas where families oftentimes fall short is they're not proactive and they're not organized, right? It's just kind of all this inbound email and letters and camp invites, and they don't really have a good tracking system around it. You know, so we've created this where, you know, from that initial just researching the school, looking at their website, getting a feel for it, maybe taking a virtual tour, which are so popular right now because that's all you can do.
Right.
You can mark that down, you know, completing the questionnaire. Again, we're not saying that we're replacing what the colleges are trying to do or their camps or anything. Like, we're encouraging them, you know, record your video, complete the school's questionnaire, because that's going to get you to that most important step one, which is just getting on the recruiting list, right?
Right.
And that's what schools do, is they build that list probably up until the end of sophomore year, middle of junior year. And then once they're there, depending on the division level, they start whittling it down, and it's just a game of crossing names off. So that takes you all the way from those two initial stages, you know, all the way down to applying, committing, you know, and then if applicable, signing the letter of intent, or at the D3 level, they call it a celebratory letter. They have different terminology for it.
I like the piece of this that it provides some validation from a player to a coach standpoint, because coaches do understand, they know what NCSA is, they're active on there, they know what's coming to them when they get something from a player for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I always compare it to like having someone come and clean your house, right? Like, you could have a bunch of people over for dinner and like, oh, you know, your house looks beautiful, like, thanks for having us over. And you're not going to say, yeah, we had the cleaning lady was here earlier today, you know, and we had the guy come cut our grass. Like, you're not going to divulge all that information, much the same way that college coaches, the best ones, are using all resources, right? They're using the companies that you referred to before, they're using NCSA, they're going to events, and they're utilizing all that, but they're not going to be out there saying like, I got my whole recruiting class from NCSA.
Right.
Right. So that's just the innate pride in each of us, where, you know, they're still the ones doing the work, and they're still the ones going through the database and figuring that all out. So if you look a little bit deeper into these college pages, and you can cut me off at any time, but this is actually kind of fun, welcome relief. But the neat things in here, and this is where that paid and that free membership, kind of the fork in the road, is with this match analysis. And the reason for that is that in order for us to create that, to run all of your information through that algorithm, we just need more information on you, and we're not going to get that unless you're a member and you're speaking with someone. So what the match analysis does is it takes the school's, you know, athletic standing, their academics, your personal preferences, and then spits out a percentage likelihood that a school like that would recruit a player like you. You know, so for Concordia, you can see that in many cases, Ryan's a good match because he wants school in Illinois, interested in D3 programs, he's good with the size, has one of the majors, he's open to Christian schools. Academically, you know, GPA wise, he's right where he needs to be. Athletically, this isn't out there yet because he hasn't received an athletic rating from NCSA or from his coach, right? And we could talk about the team platform in a little bit, but that's how he's gonna populate on this spectrum, and then he'll get a percent likelihood of his recruitability to that school.
Right. So the academic piece is obviously straightforward. He's going to be able to input that information in there. On the athletic side, yeah, kind of jump in. How are we getting to that point where we've got an athletic, rating for a player, and who decides, what validation needs to come with that?
Sure. So I can tell you that it comes from a variety of places. Labeling the athlete and placing a value on them. We use a 6-star system, and it really is like there's a lot of overlap, and you'll see there are many Division III programs that are on par with some of those lower tier Division I programs, right? As far as athletic, comparison. And we'll use RPIs, we'll use rankings, we'll use recruiting classes, we'll use conference standings on the school side. And then on the athlete side, like I said before, you have to have video, right? Video is so important. And, right now coaches are stuck with nothing other than video.
Right.
So we actually, I can go back to that part. Unlike a lot of areas, we encourage kids to film their own video, right? It's great to have a professionally edited one and do all that. But we give them guidelines that instruct them, specifically if by position, if you're an infielder, here's what sort of video you need. Here's where you set up the tripod or your cell phone. For hitters, here's the angles that we need to see. For pitchers, shoot these 2 different angles. If you can, put a radar gun in, film yourself running the 60, right? Because we were talking about showcases before. And if the only reason that you're going to a showcase is to get verified numbers and get that information out, you could buy a $200 pocket radar and a stopwatch and gather a lot of that information, right? And you can update it weekly if you wanted to. So it's really something that we're trying to encourage them to be self-guided as much as possible, and really understand how they can control it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note for some like players and parents when they're doing these. I think there's this maybe misconception that when you're doing a video, you just want your highlights. You only want, if you're doing a full BP session, you're able to load a 2-minute video on there, or from a YouTube, if you're able to do a 10-minute hitting session. I think it's a great idea to include that full video on there. A coach doesn't want to see just, hey, I know this kid can hit the ball well, on these videos. Like, show your full session. If you swing and miss on a ball, or if you hit a ground ball, top it or whatever, they're more looking for your mechanics and what you're doing well than that 1 or 2 times that you hit a battle. You don't have to edit that kind of stuff out on here.
No, absolutely not. And I would encourage them, though, to sequence it so, that first 20, 30 seconds really highlights what they excel at. So if you're a speed guy and you can show yourself going first to third, or a hard 90, going to get a ball in the outfield, that highlights it. If you're a power guy, it shows you lose a couple balls over the fence, because what happens in that first 20 to 30 seconds is going to dictate whether or not they're going to stay on to watch all the things that you're referring to.
Right.
So I wouldn't exclude those things, but I would just make sure that if, you're the DH first baseman, you probably don't want to put your 60 first.
Yeah.
Because that's not really a transferable skill that they're concerned with. So really, you're your own brand, right? Every athlete's their own brand, and they have to market it by highlighting the features that are most powerful.
Right. So what do we do next on here? How do we complete this whole profile for these guys, get them to a point where they're now able to go through, they're going to find their colleges, look what they're interested in. That gives them the ability to locate, that metric of, hey, I need this ACT, I need this GPA, and then you're going to get your athletic comparison on there for those guys. What do we do to get to that point and then proceed from there?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll take a step back here. When you go back into the profile, page, the edit profile page, we were on video before, and you could see how to upload, make it real simple. Everybody knows how to use a YouTube video. If you could use TikTok and Snapchat, I'm certain that you can upload a video to YouTube.
Right.
The athletics page, add in your teams, right? Because we still want to highlight those coaches. And once a college coach looks at your profile, more often than not, he's going to reach out to your high school coach, your travel coach, probably before reaching out to you personally. So definitely put them down as a reference.
Yeah, from a family and player situation, you kind of have to use this is almost your teaser to get the attention of a college coach. If they're able to come on here and you're matching what that coach is looking for, they're not going to offer you something right here on the spot unless it's just, insane type of standout athlete. But they're going to go through their process too and reach out to your high school coach or your travel ball coach, and then maybe locate when you're going to play games, where they're going to be. Right now, for seniors that don't have that ability yet to play, this may be that one opportunity to get in front of a college coach and show them what those videos are. And it's that time where those college coaches will reach out and say, hey, this is what I need. I do need to recruit some guys and I can't get out there. So I'm utilizing this video stuff, and then they can kind of take control from there.
Absolutely. And we talked earlier about it's kind of now or never. It's crunch time for those 2020s that are still uncommitted, that we're maybe waiting for the spring season to hit. One really neat thing that we have built within here is roster openings, right? So coaches go into our system on the college coach side, and they post what they're still looking at. So you can see just as recently as today, you have Southeastern in Iowa. A really, really good program out there is still looking at pretty much everything, right? Left-handed pitchers, right and left-handed hitters. And I think that might be, there could be a lot of reasons for that. And that's a whole different webinar, but with the eligibility relief and everything else, there's a lot of schools that are trying to figure out rosters and trying to figure out what their needs are going to be, trying to figure out who's coming back, who's staying. You just go down here and
there's so many active pieces to this website that, it's gathering so much information, not just about, players to provide to coaches, but that coaches are essentially providing to players and families that, they're active on here. How many schools would you say are active on here and that utilize the whole process?
Yeah, so if you look across all sports, all divisions, pretty much every school throughout the course of the year is using it in some capacity. If you're looking at baseball specifically, over the course of any given year, the number floats around 3/4 of them. So if you consider there's 1,640 some odd schools, it's about 1,200 that are viewing profiles, that are interacting with players. If you look at any, 2-week window or any 1-month window, it's probably about half that. And a lot of that, we've seen, for obvious reasons, we've seen such a dramatic increase over the past month, right? Because college coaches are sitting there, they can't go out, they're not playing, they're looking for different players. So we're seeing that spike. And what you have to realize too, and I think this is where that misconception comes in, is NCSA is not representing you. NCSA is not your agent. NCSA is not out there like just blasting college coaches with information. Like, that's what we don't want to do. We want to give the tools for the player to use. So a lot of that engagement needs to be driven by the athlete themselves, through prompting from us on how to do it properly, how to do things sequentially the right way.
Yeah, so you've got a coach for your high school team, a coach for your travel ball team. NCSA is kind of coming in and being a coach for your recruitment process and how you need to maybe handle yourself and do these videos and really get your information available for these college coaches to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that part of it, I went through my background as a high school coach, as a travel coach. And when I first came into NCSA, that was my big statement. I wouldn't even say it's a question, but, I just told them straight up, like, listen, the reason people are having a difficult time with NCSA is that the coaches, the ones that they're with day in and day out, can't see behind the curtain. Right. Coaches were never able to see all this. And, fortunately, I mean, do you want me to show the team side of things real quick?
Let's see the team side.
So now, fortunately, we have, can you see it? Did it come up?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so now we have what we call team edition. So, any of the teams that are a part of Pastime, or really any team throughout the country, both travel and high school, are able to put their athletes, both the ones that are using NCSA currently or other ones that they want to put in there, they're able to do that and track their progress and also assist them. So the same athlete that we were just looking at, his profile from his vantage point is now here in my dashboard, and I can see, again, how complete his profile is, when he last updated his video, how many schools that he's favorited, how many emails he sent. You can also see, I was talking about that TAP test before, if they've taken that, how they've been labeled there. And then I can communicate with them. We don't really want to be a communication tool, but if I wanted to send them an email to remind them, hey, take the TAP test, hey, you need to update your video, I do have the ability to do it, within this platform.
Right. And again, this is a coach for, the Illinois Indians. This is the roster he has on his team, or the guys that are in the program that he's kind of helping track their progress and tell them, hey, this is what you should be doing right now. Get back on here and grab that. Because a lot of times we talk about teams or coaches and parents that call and say, hey, what scouts are going to be there? And a lot of times we just can't give that information, in January for an event that takes place in June. And they'll ask about, how we're getting coaches there. And we've always indicated that, look, we're not your first stop for exposure. The exposure piece really starts with the coach of your team, because he knows you better than we do right now. He knows whether we need to get a Xavier or Michigan State there as opposed to a Parkland Junior College or a Marion University, an NAIA type of school. So the exposure really starts, and the recruitment really starts with the coaches of these teams. This gives those guys the platform to really monitor and set their players up to do well with this system as well.
Absolutely. And I think for a lot of them, it also takes the personal relationship out of it. To have an arbitrary source that is saying, okay, well, here's how the player is matching, is a lot easier in some cases than having that conversation with the parent and saying, listen, they're a little bit short on the arm, a little bit slow on foot to play at this division level. Those are tough conversations to have. And even when you do have them, it's kind of lost in translation and it's not resonating all the time. So I think for them to see it and know that, there are hundreds of thousands of athletes that have come before, that's how this data was derived and that's how these algorithms were created, that helps them settle into something and helps them feel good about it too, right? Because the schools that you listed off, some of the smaller programs, they have no idea, right? Again, this is a sophomore athlete, so for sure he's going to go through and favorite the schools that he's most familiar with, the ones that he's heard of, the ones that other kids in his school that have went to not to play sports. But then he's also going to see some Holy Cross, which is a Division I program. I bet he doesn't know the first thing about it. Right. John Carroll, which is a great school, right? Great school, great program, good facilities. Probably doesn't know too much about it. Now that gives them the opportunity to say, hey, I know I favorited these ones, but let me take a look at this and kind of see what they have to offer. And that's a real feel-good moment, and one that, short of searching around on Google, that this, prompts them to do so.
Yeah, I think we all obviously want to go play Division I baseball, and we want to go to Vanderbilt and play, and we want to go to Louisville and play, and Michigan and play. We want to go to these schools that, are almost unachievable for 99.9% of athletes. And for me, when I was doing this whole process, I just wanted to play baseball somewhere. I didn't really care where I was going to go play baseball. So this kind of opens that door for those opportunities to see universities and know those names that you've never even thought of, whether it's at a JC level or a Division I level. Opening that door, and ultimately for me, I like the fact that this thing is going to help me understand. I want to go play at Indiana University, but I've got a 2.25 GPA. You've got that realistic opportunity to look at this and say, look, I don't have the ability to do that. If I want to go to that route and be able to play at that Division I school, and I'm a Division I kind of kid, maybe this JC route is where I need to go first, so I can show that I do have the ability to get the academic piece in place, and then I can transfer into a university like that.
Absolutely.
I think there's just so much knowledge that this thing gives you, and it makes it easier than, like you said, Google searching university after university. Again, a lot of times we're only searching for the names we know, the Division I or Division II schools that we know. We're leaving off a D3 or an NAIA, JUCOs, things like that, that this is going to open the door and at least throw that pitch out to you and say, hey, you fit academically in this type of school, fits the location you like, and now you've matched athletically with these guys. Maybe this is something you should look at. I know if I had that in front of me, probably had a lot more schools that I could have at least approached and said, hey, here's my type of video. Do I fit with what you're looking for athletically from a player? And then let's go from there and see what happens.
Yep. And we've had countless players that have been cut from their high school teams, right, that have went on to play college baseball because, again, in a lot of areas that are more population dense, like it's hard to be a varsity high school baseball player in some programs. And, they can still have travel baseball as an outlet and still have a team to play on. And there's been kids that have went out to California. There's been kids that went out to Texas. One is up in Wisconsin right now that I can think of that never played one day of high school baseball, but were able to find a college program, and they're currently rostered and are getting some financial aid. They're smaller programs, D3 NAIAs, but that combination of being an athlete and a great student has made a lot of things possible for them.
Yeah, I think we touched on this on a episode we did earlier. The athletic piece is your primary focus on some of these things. For the guys that are coming up, freshmen, sophomore, juniors, if you can get your athletic or your academic piece in order right away, the doors for the athletic side just fly right open. Because you don't have to worry about eligibility issues to go to this school or that school. From a college coach standpoint, they have the ability to use academic money on you instead of scholarship money. That is, I don't know, you can't even replace that with anything else for these guys. The academic side is massive. And then the athletic side will generally take care of itself in placing you where you should be. But if you've got the academic side in order, I mean, there are so many more doors that are open for you.
Yeah, well, just consider that, for easy numbers, for every half a point down you are in a standard 4-point GPA, it's eliminating like 400 to 500 schools.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's monumental. So again, starting at 1,600, you go to a 3.5 and you're down to 1,200. You go down to a 3.0 and you're suddenly down to 800. You go down to a 2.5 and you're down to 400. And anything below that, you have junior colleges, which don't have those restrictions, some of the NAIAs. But even then, you have to realize that if a coach sees an exceptional athlete or, one that wants to play, and they're comparing, one that has better grades versus one that doesn't, it's a no-brainer, because I think a lot of coaches would agree that, maybe some of the test taking stuff's a little bit more challenging, but anybody that puts forth a good effort should be able to take care of a decent grade point average through high school.
Right, for sure. So what can we close with these guys? How do we get people on here? Where are we going to go to get them set up for something like this?
Yeah, we can, we'll share a link, along with this video for them to start their profile. I think a lot of kids that are being rostered already have. For those that, want to go through the team edition process, for those coaches that are listening in, they can go to team.ncsasports.org. I want to make sure that we can, trace it back to athletics and pastime in Mid-America, so we can put all that stuff in one place for college coaches to see and do all that. But that's the best thing for the travel coaches and the high school coaches. As far as the athletes are concerned, again, we can share a link with them, that will allow them to start that profile. The basic one is just ncsasports.org. But again, I want to make sure they get attached to the right teams.
Yeah. So for those watching, take a look below. There's a link for the team edition and the individual player side, and we'll get that stuff out. And obviously, we'll make sure that you get all the information you need to get set up. And then again, this is one of the key pieces to our exposure thoughts. Is any of these platforms that you can get on is great. This one, NCSA just provides so much information that it really eliminates the need to be on 3 or 4 platforms like this. Everything's in one place. You're doing so much less work from, a searching standpoint that it's almost an invaluable piece of this thing. So appreciate you coming on. I know I'll probably have you on again at some point, but we'll get everybody set up and we'll be back hopefully playing baseball soon.
Yeah, to make it really easy for any athletes that are interested, they can just text recruit pastime, the space in the middle, recruit pastime, to 797979, and that'll give them a link where they can start their profile and get going with it.
Perfect. We'll include that below too. All right, Nelson, appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Simon.